Okay, next up in our machine learning tutorial is linear regression. So, what is linear regression? Well, before we get to that, we first have to talk about supervised learning, because linear regression is a type of supervised learning. So, what is supervised learning? Remember, what we have is a number of input features, and we want to use these input features to predict an output. What are examples of supervised learning? Detecting spam email is the first one. So what you want to predict, so your output is an email spam or no spam. What do you use as input? Well, for example, the number of words in the email, the number of spelling errors, the address of the sender, and so on. Second example, identifying objects in photos. For example, your inputs could be the pixels of a photo, or more specifically, the RGB values associated with the pixels, and the output would be, is something a cat or a dog. Third example, predicting house prices. The inputs could be the size of the house, how old it is, its location, and you want to know how much is it going to fetch on the market. In supervised learning, you generally have two different kinds. The first one is regression, where the output variable is continuous, so it can be any number, for example, a dollar amount. And then you have classification, where the output variable is discrete, so you only have distinct classes. Let's think about the examples from before. Are these regression or classification problems? Predicting whether an email is spam or no spam. Well, this is a classification problem because you have two distinct classes that you want to predict. Is an image in a photo a cat or a dog? It's a classification problem because, again, you have two distinct classes. Predicting house prices. This is a regression problem because a house price can be any number. Okay, so what is a model? In machine learning, we always use models. Well, a model is a way for us to predict an output given input features. A linear model takes a form as shown here. This is the simplest kind of linear model you can have. Y equals a times x plus b, where a and b are just any numbers. So to make this concrete, in the housing price example, let's say your output, y is the house price, and x is the size in square meters. You have one input, you have one output. Applied to this equation, this means that you want to say that the house price is equal to some number a times its size in square meters plus some number b. If I tell you the size, you can multiply by a, add b, and you get the house price. Now the idea is that we want to learn or find out the best parameters a and b. How do we measure what the best parameters are? We need some way of finding out the error, of measuring the error between our predictions and the true values. Let's say we have a couple of data points. Here, this is the first data point, x1, the input feature, y1, the output feature, up to xn, yn. This is the nth data point. If I tell you x, you can make a prediction, and we'll call this prediction yi hat. So if I tell you xi, the size of the ith house in square meters, you can calculate a times xi plus b, and you will get yi hat, which is your prediction. Now you can measure the difference between the true value yi and the predicted value yi hat. You can take the difference, square it up. This is a squared error for a single training example. And then take the average over all of the training examples, over all of your data points. We call this the mean squared error. Now the idea is that we want to find numbers a and b that minimize this expression here, because then we will have minimized the error between the predictions and the true values. There are different ways of doing this. We could use calculus in order to differentiate the cost function, set it equal to 0. This would work in this case, but in general in machine learning this is not possible. It is only possible here because linear regression is a very simple model. So we'll talk a little bit about an algorithm called gradient descent that is iterative, meaning you start out with an initial guess and then you slowly over time get closer to the best solution. So how does this work? Let's have a look at this graph here. And for simplicity, suppose we only have one parameter, w. W is the number that we want to optimize. What's our goal? Well, we want to find w in order to minimize this cost function, j, that depends on w. And let's say the cost function looks like this. So the optimal w is in the middle here. What we'll do is we'll start out with initial weight here. We will look at the gradient of the cost function. In this case, the gradient is positive, and we will move in the opposite direction. If we take this step here, it means that we'll have decreased our cost function because j has gone down. We will do the same again and again and again and again, and the hope is that after a couple of iterations of the scheme, we'll finally get to the global minimum, to the best w. That gives us the lowest cost. So more mathematically, this means that we have an old value of w, we subtract the gradient times some learning rate, epsilon. Epsilon is some small number that basically tells us how large the steps are that we take. If we do that, we get a new value of w. We keep doing this until our cost function is minimized. That's the basic idea. So let's put this into more concrete terms. We had our cost function from before. We can plug in this expression for y hat, and we can take the derivative with respect to a and with respect to b. This is the cost function. The derivative, or more specifically the partial derivative, is going to be this expression using the chain rule. And the derivative with respect to b is going to be very similar, once again using the chain rule. Now, how does the algorithm proceed? We start with some initial guesses, a and b. Could be 0, for example. We calculate the cost. We'll then repeat the scheme that we saw before. For a, we will have an old value. We subtract epsilon times the gradient. We get a new value of a. For b, we will have an old value. We will subtract epsilon times the gradient with respect to b. We'll get a new value b. Once we've done that, once we have updated a and b, we'll get a new cost. We can then compare the old cost and the new cost. And if the difference is if it's smaller than some very small number, we will stop. If it's not smaller, we will continue doing this. We will calculate the gradient with respect to a and with respect to b, and we'll update a and b, calculate the new cost. Stop, and then the algorithm will be done. If the difference is very small, otherwise keep repeating this. And the hope is, if you keep doing these updates, slowly but steadily, you'll get close to the best w that is associated with the lowest cost. Now, once we fit a model, how do we decide how good it is? For example, we could have two different models and we need to compare them. There are different ways of measuring how good our model is. We call these evaluation metrics. A simple metric, and probably the most well-known one, is mean squared error, which is essentially the same thing as we saw before. It's just the average square difference between the predicted value and the true value. Another way of evaluating how good our model is the mean average error, or the mean absolute error, which is the average absolute difference between the prediction and the true value. We take the absolute value of the difference, we take an average. So the metric that we use to evaluate a model can be different from the cost function. It doesn't have to be, but it can be different. Okay, so which one is better? Well, you can't say in general, but there's one thing that distinguishes these two functions. Mean squared error is sensitive to outliers in the data, whereas mean average error is not. If you look at this graph, you will see that x squared grows very large as x becomes large. And it grows much faster than the absolute value of x, meaning if you have a large error, for example, if you have an outlier in data, this will be penalized a lot. So in case that your data contains recording errors, or some other kind of outlier, it might be a safer choice to evaluate your model using the mean average error. You can, of course, also choose more than one metric to display your results. That might actually be more insightful than just using a single one. Well, let's say you have many different metrics to choose from. Which ones do you choose? Well, you might want to choose those that are easier to understand for people who might not know much about machine learning, who are stakeholders in your business, for example. And generally speaking, it depends on your requirements, how you want to measure how good your model is, and what the business's requirements are. Okay, let's get back to linear regression and how we can extend it a little bit. Before, we just had one input feature or one input variable. But of course, we can use more than one feature in order to predict the price of the house. For example, we can use the location of the house. We can use the number of bedrooms it has, its age, and other things. If we do this, our model is called multivariate linear regression, but often people just call it linear regression as well. So let's say our features are x1, x2, up to xm. We can set up a very similar model as before, as essentially just longer. What we have here is some parameter, a0, so just some number, plus some number times x1, plus some number times x2, and so on, plus some number times xm. This is multivariate linear regression. We can also introduce additional nonlinear features from the existing ones. For example, we can put in a square term, x1 squared, or x2 squared, and we can put in a product term, x1 times x2. This is called polynomial regression. Often, before you start fitting a model, meaning before you, for example, run gradient descent, you want to scale your features in order to make sure that they're in the same range. What does this mean? Essentially, you take your old feature, you subtract its mean, and divide by its standard deviation. So this is how you would calculate the mean. This is how you calculate the standard deviation based on the mean. So you calculate the mean first, then the standard deviation. You subtract the mean from each data point, and you divide the standard deviation. In this way, you go from the old scale to the new scale. If you do this to every feature, then they will be roughly on the same scale. Now, why would you do this? Well, it turns out it can help in interpreting your model, as well as in making sure that an algorithm such as gradient descent converges to the global optimum, meaning it makes it easier for the algorithm to perform optimally. Finally, let's talk a little bit about feature selection. Often in more complicated examples, in real-world examples, you have thousands of different features, but you don't want to use all of them because maybe there are just too many, because you want to have a model that others can understand, or because a lot of them are just noise and would confuse your model. You can handpick features, but you should also know that many software packages in languages such as R or Python can automatically choose for you which features are useful, so you don't have to bother with that step. This is called feature selection.